Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast, where we answer your sales distress calls. I'm Liz Hyman, and each week I'm joined by your crew of seasoned sales experts who have navigated these waters and come out victorious. So if you're ready to turn your sales distress into sales success, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's topic. Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast. I'm your host, Liz Hyman, and I am here with your Sales SOS podcast crew, Renee Bigelow, Bryn Tillman, and Chris Bowen. And today we are talking about 2026. How do we get started in 2026 successfully? And the last couple of episodes that we've done have been about prospecting and about keeping momentum. And now we're going to talk about keeping the customers that we have and growing the customers that we have. Really briefly, we're going to talk about this, but there's no point getting new customers if you're not keeping the ones you have, right? That is the least expensive, most important thing you can do is keep the customers you have, keep them happy, keep them growing, solving their problems. So what can we do to actually win that repeat business and earn their loyalty? Like how do we do this? Because when I hear companies telling me, especially SaaS companies telling me they've got 30% churn, like, are you kidding me? How can you afford that? That's like having a pen full of sheep and going to the market to go get more sheep and leaving the gate open. We just don't do that. Sorry, I grew up spending my summers on a farm. But we don't do that. So what are some things, what are some easy strategies for keeping our existing customers engaged and happy? And before I pass it to the team, let me just say this. If you did not go through the sales process properly and you had a complex business-to-business sale and you forgot to check in with the user buyers about what they wanted and what they needed and how they use it, and now they're not engaged because they don't like it and they're not using it and no one ever explained it to them, you're losing this, not because the customer success team didn't do their job. You're losing because you didn't do your job, because the salesperson didn't do their job, because the sales organization didn't make sure that they were selling to a client they could keep happy. It's too expensive. It's a waste of money to sell to a customer who's not going to be happy. So, okay, you guys, now we have customers who should be happy. We eliminated that problem. How do we keep them happy? Brenda, you ready to start?
So the first thing is stop handing it off completely to a customer success person. Like there's this that went from an SDR to the account executive to customer success, and there's no continuity in relationships. Right?
Okay, wait, stop. Do you guys all hate that as much as I do?
Renee, you might be.
Yeah, I will just say again, a CRM company, right? They're supposed to know sales really well. They're supposed to know customer success really well. One of my biggest pain points is every year when there's a contract negotiation, this AE flies in. It's often changed since the last time. They have no idea about my account, right? And they start trying to negotiate the contract and what's different or whatever off of some scorecard that they're seeing on my account. Whereas the person that I deal with on a regular basis, my account manager, can't contribute to the sale. Sorry. Soapbox.
No, I mean, but this is an epidemic. Let's be really clear. This is not a standalone issue. This is sales enablement got up there and said, okay, we're going to silo those things so that the SDRs are solely focused on, one thing and that they can do that exceptionally well. Then the account manager is focused on one thing, and then client success. So and that is not at any way, shape, or form beneficial to the buyer. That is about what the selling company thinks is in the best interest of most top productivity. And so that's where it breaks down. So I have clients that are too big for me to change that. But because I'm working with one department and one sales team, I'm like, these are your relationships, guys. You can hand it over to customer success, but you need to say to them, if anything happens or doesn't happen that should have, I am still here for you. If you need an internal advocate because you're not getting what you need, I'm still here for you. And in fact, what I'd like to do is set up a reoccurring 15-minute meeting every single month with you where we can go through, are you getting what you need? Is adoption happening? And then I can fight internally to make sure that you're getting everything you need. And so what's happening now, and I've worked with this company for a lot of years, for quite a few years, and it's only a small group. Like, I need to expand, but it's a small group that we're sharing great success in. But here's what we're seeing. There was a little bit of need in the beginning. There's not a lot of need, but they're still enjoying their 15 minutes. But what happens is renewals are no problem, no issue. We're just renewing because I'm still getting that 15 minutes a month. I feel taken care of. I have a customer success person who's helping me. But my original account executive, who really is responsible at the highest level, is showing up for me every single month, 15 minutes. Here are the other things that came from this that are seller focused, not buyer focused. It's so much easier to get referrals from those clients. Like, your business is going to expand exponentially because of that deep relationship. If you hand that off and in 6 months you want a referral, they don't remember your name. So there's some selfishness in this. I don't want this to be about selfishness. But when the team lead says, that's not the best use of their time, what could be better than a scheduled meeting with a client that you are continuing to build a deep relationship with, that, by the way, if they leave, will take you wherever they go. If they leave, will absolutely make sure that, especially if it's on their own terms, that you have deeper relationships with other folks inside the organization. And I'm just going to share one quick, because I'm on this client, one quick success story. One of the things one of the reps did, because they wanted more content and marketing wasn't helping at all, is they started interviewing their clients, not about their product or service, just interviewing their clients and highlighting and spotlighting. And then what they did is they socially surround all the other players inside of the organization with the 7-minute spotlight video. And so they went to the CEO and said, hey, really love working with this person, interviewed them, great interview, check this out. They went to, so socially surrounded. So when, in this one case, when their one client left, by the way, they were brought in immediately to the new company, but they had a foothold inside this organization. So when a new person came in who wanted to bring in their company, the rest of the organization said, no, we have a deep relationship with the rep. Okay, I'm done ranting.
Okay, Chris.
I think one of the things that you should do and do fairly early, especially for larger accounts, is schedule your QBRs and get QBRs going, and not make it to where you're just saying, oh, here's what we did within your account. Make it joint. What is it that they need? What is it that you're providing? Where are the gaps? What are some topics that you can bring to that leadership team that they're not currently leveraging, whether it's feature function or whether it's other problems that you're seeing in the industry? But make sure you're building those relationships. And if you do that on a really, really obviously quarterly basis, then at least you're able to have that consistent checkpoint and make sure that they're getting what they need. Not because those things can change relatively quickly. And if you're not on top of it and you don't have those relationships, then you're going to get supplanted. Or they're going to look at another solution that may be features and functions or things that you could do, but you're not going to get that chance because maybe they don't know about that because it's not something they're using today. And you're going to miss out on those opportunities. But it's really maintaining those relationships and then building that relationship across the organization from the people that not only use your product, but are impacted by it. So you can understand when things are going bad, you can get ahead of it. If you're waiting until they raise a red flag, you've got a lot of work to do at that point because it's taken a long time for them to get there.
So I want to add to what Chris just said. what's really important is that sales is not a bad word, remember? So our sales teams, our sellers, our customer success reps, their jobs are to solve problems. So when I talk to new companies that I'm working with and I say to them, well, what other opportunities are there in this account? And have you talked to anybody? And their response is, well, we don't want to push. We don't want to be salesy. We don't want to undermine the relationship by, getting out of our lane. And my reaction is this. It's very simple. If they have a problem that you can solve and you are not solving it for them, someone else will. And when that someone else from another company, probably your competitor, solves that problem for them, they've probably done it at a strategic level. So as you work with a company, you get moved down to this operational level and you start talking to the people that you know well and that you interact with every day. And you stop talking to the strategic players that brought you in the first place. So now your competitor is solving a problem you had every opportunity to solve, but you didn't get proactive and figure out that they had the problem. Some new sales rep comes in from another company, positions themselves strategically. And then everybody starts going, well, where's our current vendor? Why weren't they there helping us solve this problem? And suddenly you are unseated because you didn't do what your customer needed them to do, which was help them solve problems. So when your customers are saying things to you like stay in your own lane, it's because they don't know what you do. And because you are operationally reacting to their needs and you are not strategically working with them to solve their problems. So if you want those relationships to grow, particularly those strategic or those that have a huge opportunity for growth, you cannot be reactive. You've got to be strategic and you've got to partner and you've got to be proactive. And that's how they grow. Renee, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to that, the flywheel and the momentum, right? It doesn't stop with the sale. It doesn't stop when you get somebody into a sales process, and it doesn't stop when they come back. You have to start marketing to your customers again, but you market to them as customers, not prospects, right? So marketing never goes away throughout all this. So that needs to be part of it. Secondly, I love what Chris and Bren said, and Chris and Bren, I 100% do the same thing with my clients. If it's split, many companies, the sales rep still does account management. There's a lot of that out there, but when it is split, making sure that they're together at least for the QBRs, so that the relationship is across both. But I also think it needs to go deeper than just those two. And I'm going to tell you why. One is 30 to 40% of most of my customers turnover in the last 5 years or so. They all tell me when I do an initial intake with them, one of our top problems is our buyer. We have 30 to 40% attrition rate across the board with the people who buy our products. The reason is people aren't staying as long in jobs, right? Guess what that also means? And this is where the sales staff doesn't always recognize. Your sales staff is also turning over pretty regularly. So your customers need to have a relationship with people that aren't just your salesperson. There is a lot of push for it to be the salesperson that controls the relationship. And I believe that's true through a sales process while they're steering. But once they become a customer, you got to go deep. You got to have a deep bench because you have high risk if that person leaves and the reciprocity for that relationship walks out the door with that rep, right?
Yeah. So Renee, what you're saying is your sales rep doesn't own the relationship, doesn't control the relationship. Right. They quarterback it.
Right.
They quarterback that relationship and they toss the ball off to the person who needs to be having the conversation.
And the quarterback doesn't play solo out on the field, right?
Nope. Never saw one successfully do that.
If you are an important enough customer, the CEO needs to know your CEO's name, right? They need to at least have interacted. Your direct buyer needs to know that the CEO for the sales rep, the product we're selling from, they need to know the CEO finds them important. They need to get a message from the CEO from time to time. We need to make that happen. And then the third thing, so there's continuing to market to them. There's making sure you grow bench for both sides of the bench, right? And then you need to make sure that your customers identify as customers of your brand. It needs to feel like they are part of a tribe of like-minded people. They need to meet other people that feel the same way. So whatever you can do that starts, one of the best ways to crank your flywheel and get more business out of your customers is when they identify as, I am a customer of X. This is what I do. This is how I do this process. This is how I purchase. And then they meet other people who are like-minded. If you can start that turn of the flywheel where you start putting your clients in situations together, like these do not have to be high lift. One of the top things I often do is in office hours for my clients, where instead of a webinar where we're the only ones that can speak, it's just a Zoom type meeting and everybody can speak. And they're often very small, but customers start talking to each other more than we talk, right? And that makes them identify as being part of a tribe. And when they feel part of a tribe, then it's part of their identity. When it's part of their identity, they do more, right? So that's like a very heavily underutilized tactic, is getting the first turn of turning your customers into a community. You don't have to be a consumer brand to do that. As a matter of fact, you often have a lot more success in doing it more easily as a B2B brand.
Okay. Thanks, Renee. That was exactly right on. Any other last thoughts before we wrap up this conversation about how to grow your existing accounts?
The last thing I would say, Liz, is it was something that you had said that sparked this, but it was if your customer has a problem that you can solve, it is malfeasance for you to not help solve that problem. I mean, you should not view as you have this great relationship if you're not in there and understand, hey, we've got things that can solve these other problems for you, and they understand that. If you're letting your competition come into a place where you've got a foothold, all because you're scared of being salesy or pushy or anything like that, you're not being pushy. You're solving a problem that they have. They're going to buy or not buy based on whether that view is accurate, right? So I think that's one of the things that I've said so many times. I probably should have it tattooed or something. So
probably. And you can't do that if you don't have relationships across the organization.
I have one more tactical thing to add, Liz. And that is, make sure you know what's going on at your customers. Sign up for their newsletters. Set a Google alert for your customer companies, right? Make it go to a folder in your inbox. And before you call them, take a look and see what's happening in that folder so that you know what's going on. Bren probably has a million tips for how you can follow any personnel changes on LinkedIn, right? But know what's happening with the players, know what's happening with the company. If they had a big oopsie and they're in the news for a bad reason, you don't want to go into your meetings and not know about that. If they have a big new office being built or new division rolling out, like to Chris's point, you should know. So set up some tools that are very simple, subscribing to their newsletter, following everybody you need to follow on LinkedIn, set up a Google alert, whatever tools, those are all free, by the way, but whatever tools you have available to keep track of what's going on. And to Chris's point with the QBRs, at minimum, before the QBR every time, review that.
Well, thanks to the Sales SOS crew. Thanks to all of you for joining us for this episode of the Sales SOS podcast.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. A huge thank you to our experts for throwing us a lifeline with their insights. We hope that episode has equipped you to navigate sales leadership with confidence. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to your Sales SOS podcast on your favorite platform. If you have questions, comments, or topics you'd like us to explore, join us live on LinkedIn every second Friday, or share your questions on LinkedIn or YouTube. Until next time, keep sailing toward your sales goal.